everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to discuss another interesting topic, and that is hiring in the technology industry. I think that in my channel, this is rather the second time that we're discussing that topic, but today we're going to take a look at it from a different perspective. I think one of the most damaging things about the modern job market is not just rejection itself, but rather prolonged exposure to dysfunctional systems that slowly condition people into believing that they are the problem. And over the past few years, I've noticed something very important as a system software engineer, and that is that many hiring companies and systems today are not functioning at all. They are fragmented, disconnected, non-transparent systems with conflicting expectations, poor communication, and almost no investment into human development. And unfortunately, when people are repeatedly exposed to those systems, they internalize that dysfunction. They start thinking, maybe I'm not skilled enough, maybe I'm behind, maybe everybody else understands something I don't, or does something that I don't. But sometimes reality is much simpler in that the expectations themselves are irrational. Not necessarily high, not ambitious, but that's the word, irrational. And there is a difference because many companies today do expect candidates to arrive fully formed, like fully trained, fully adapted, fully independent, immediately productive, socially integrated, and to somehow also magically be aligned with internal expectations that have never been told or talked about. And this is not how humans work. And it is not how engineering works either. Every company has different workflows, communication styles, tooling, operational expectations, priorities, and internal culture. So without onboarding, without training, without mentorship and transparency, companies are not reducing the risk by externalizing all responsibility onto candidates. But instead, what's happening is that they are rather increasing the risk. They create confusion, burnout, mistakes, turnover, fear-based work cultures, and eventually frustration on both sides. And then companies become very confused about why they can't find either the good candidates, despite receiving hundreds or even thousands of applications for a single job role. But the problem is often not the applicants. The problem is that the organizations themselves have become disconnected from operational reality. And one thing that I've realized as well is that the more experienced people become, the faster they identify dysfunction. And this is something companies actually often misunderstand because experienced engineers are not negative when they notice contradictions in job descriptions. It's rather simple pattern recognition, and they can immediately identify unclear role boundaries, impassable expectations, lack of support structures, poor communication, absence of onboarding, and cultures optimized entirely around output instead of sustainability. And ironically, the very companies trying their hardest to avoid failure often recreate the exact conditions that produce it. So, for example, the fear of underqualified employees leads to refusal to train people, which creates talent shortages. And fear of mistakes, for example, leads to hyper-filtering candidates, which creates endless hiring paralysis. Fear of turnover leads to overworking employees, which creates then burnout and turnover. So minimizing investment into employees creates exactly the instability that companies claim they want to avoid. And I think that this is especially important for younger people entering tech right now, because there are endless advertisements online to learn coding, to become a data analyst, or to switch to tech in 6 months, or to build your dream career. But what many people discover afterwards is that they are entering a market where companies are often expecting senior level independence from junior level applicants. And when people fail to meet impossible, undefined, non-transparent expectations, they blame themselves. But dysfunction should not become an identity. Um, and I want to share as well a few practical indicators people can use to recognize potentially dysfunctional environments earlier on. So I will focus on number one, and that would be language, prioritizing speed over learning. So, for example, phrases like hit the ground running, operate at pace, immediate impact, or delivery focus culture. Now, all of those sound like normal language and expectations, but that can also indicate limited onboarding and expectations of immediate productivity without adequate adjustment and time. Number two is moralized framing of performance. So phrases like only the best or not for everyone or high performance thrive here that can signal environments where normal learning occurs or mistakes become personalized as moral failure instead of being treated as part of growth. And number three, role scope inflation. That's a big one. I think that this is probably the most common one that can be seen quite often, maybe, I guess, at least 90% of job roles I've encountered at least, but expectations of being a business analyst, stakeholder management, operations, testing, support, domain expertise, and development altogether. This often indicates role overload, insufficient staffing, and lack of operational clarity. And my personal guideline about those is if multiple indicators like these appear together in a job description, especially two or more, there is a strong possibility that the environment lacks healthy support structures. This does not make people inside the company bad people, but it may indicate a system operating under unresolved dysfunction. And I think also that people need to hear that your value is not determined by how well you survive dysfunctional systems. Healthy organizations do exist, functional teams do exist, and good leadership does exist. And once you've experienced actually healthy environments, you begin recognizing very quickly when something is deeply wrong. And that's not because you're difficult or arrogant or not because of anything else. It's because you understand what functional systems actually look like. And honestly, I think that most people need permission to trust these observations instead of constantly overriding them in order to fit into environments that are fundamentally unsustainable. So I hope that you found this interesting. I hope that it might be interesting as well if you take those metrics and probably test them in your own life, specifically if you're in the tech industry, but literally any other industry. Those are kind of universally applicable. And yeah, thank you for listening and have a nice day.